Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
All right, Commanders fans, we've got one of those weeks where there is genuinely too much happening, and for once, that's a good problem to have. No filler, no manufactured storylines, no let's talk about a random depth chart battle because there's nothing else going on. This week, the actual news is doing the heavy lifting, and it is stacked. We've got a legendary number officially going up in the rafters. We've got players actively campaigning on social media to bring in one of the most talented and most controversial free agent wide receivers in football. And we've got a quiet leadership moment from Jaden Daniels that might tell you more about this team's ceiling than any stat sheet ever could. So grab a seat, because we're covering all of it. Let's start with the feel-good story because it deserves the spotlight first. John Riggins, the Diesel himself, is officially getting his number retired by the organization. And to make it even sweeter, we now have the details locked in. The ceremony is happening during the Week 8 game against the Los Angeles Rams, and Riggins will become the 7th player in franchise history to receive this honor. Let that number sink in for a second. 7 in the entire history of this storied franchise, only 6 players before him have ever had their jersey retired. That's the club Riggins is joining, and honestly, if you know anything about what this man meant to Washington football, you know it's a club he should have been in a long, long time ago. Just to put his numbers in perspective, because they're still absolutely staggering even by today's standards, Riggins remains the franchise's all-time leading rusher with over 7,700 career rushing yards and 79 rushing touchdowns. 79. And here's the part that really drives home how far ahead of everyone else he still is. The next closest player in franchise history, Clinton Portis, sits 33 rushing touchdowns behind him. 33. That's not a close race. That's not he's still the leader, but somebody's gaining ground. That's a gap so large it might never actually close. Riggins isn't just a franchise legend. He's a franchise standard that nobody has come remotely close to touching in the decades since he retired. Now, there's a layer to this story that's worth talking about honestly, because it says a lot about where this organization has been and where it's trying to go. For years, there was a well-documented, pretty publicly known frosty relationship between Riggins and the franchise's previous ownership under Dan Snyder. Riggins didn't hold back about his feelings on that relationship either, and it wasn't exactly a warm review. But here's the thing about the current ownership group under Josh Harris. Ever since he took over back in 2023, there's been a consistent, deliberate pattern of reconnecting this franchise with its history, bringing Joe Gibbs back into the building to speak with the current roster, elevating Santana Moss into a prominent media role with the organization, getting Doug Williams more involved, having Darrell Green take part in draft day festivities. And now, finally, retiring Riggins' number and bringing him back into the fold in a real, tangible way. And it's not just symbolic on paper either. There have been some genuinely great moments captured recently of Riggins actually out at practice, walking the field, talking with current players, pictures of him chatting with members of the coaching staff, with Jaden Daniels himself, with players across the roster. It's the kind of full circle, past meets present imagery that a franchise simply can't manufacture unless the effort behind it is real. Is this front office perfect? No, of course not. No franchise's decision-makers bat 1,000 on every move they make. But when it comes to respecting and honoring the history of this team, they've been getting it right again and again. Riggins finally getting his number retired with nobody ever allowed to wear 44 again is just the latest example. Long overdue, but incredibly fitting. All right, now let's get into the story that's got the entire fan base buzzing, because this one has layers, and it's honestly one of the more fascinating subplots in the entire NFL this offseason. Stefon Diggs and his not-so-subtle campaign to become a Commander. Here's how this all connects. Remember Kion Chatham, who made the jump from the Patriots down to Washington? Well, it turns out he and Diggs were actually teammates up in New England last season, and that connection is now playing out in a pretty entertaining way on social media. Diggs has been posting non-stop workout videos on Instagram and by every account. The man looks like he's in tremendous shape, even at 32 years old. Even coming off a torn ankle a couple seasons back, this is a guy who still managed to put up 1,000 receiving yards last season while playing barely over half of his team's offensive snaps. That's not a declining player. That's a guy who, when healthy and given real playing time, is still an absolute problem for opposing defenses. So Chatham hops on to one of these workout videos and drops a comment that immediately sets Commanders' Twitter on fire, "Raise hail." For those who don't know, that's about as clear a recruiting pitch as you can send a free agent without literally offering him a contract yourself. And here's the fun part. This isn't even the first time this has happened. We're already tracking multiple instances of players dropping that exact hashtag under non-Commanders receivers posts. So the real question becomes, who's next? Is this just the start of a full-blown recruiting pipeline with more of Jaden Daniels' guys getting the same treatment? That's a storyline worth watching all on its own. But here's where it gets really interesting. Diggs didn't just let the comments sit there. He responded with a devil emoji and a pair of eyes, which, if you're fluent in social media flirtation, is about as clear a signal of interest as you're going to get without literally typing out, "Yes, sign me." And then he pinned the comment to the top of his page, guaranteeing that anyone who opens up his comment section sees that exchange immediately. That's not an accident. That's a player very deliberately signaling where he'd like to end up. Now, here's where the story takes a much more serious turn, and it's important to walk through this carefully and accurately because there's real legal substance behind it, not just off-season gossip. As talented as Diggs remains on the field, his path to a new contract has been complicated by an ongoing legal situation. He was accused by a man named Christopher Griffith of serious misconduct, allegations serious enough that they've resulted in an active legal case rather than just social media noise. Diggs has firmly maintained his innocence throughout, and in fact, he's gone on the offensive legally, filing a countersuit for defamation against his accuser. A judge did order Diggs to clarify the nature of his relationship with Griffith, and Diggs' initial response was that he'd been blocked by the man on both Instagram and text message, meaning he no longer had access to their prior conversations. But here's the twist that's developed just this week. Griffith has now turned over more than 100 pages of alleged conversations between the two of them, spanning both Instagram messages and text exchanges. Diggs has since taken to social media to characterize the entire situation as overblown, essentially dismissing the case as much ado about nothing. And if that wasn't enough legal drama swirling around this situation, there's now a separate, related development. Just days ago, this same accuser reached a $10 million settlement, but this particular settlement involved Diggs' brother DeRoss Diggs along with a Los Angeles apartment complex. The accuser had claimed that DeRoss and several others were involved in an incident where more than $100,000 worth of his property was allegedly taken. Diggs responded publicly, clarifying that the lawsuit had actually been against the apartment complex itself, not directly against his brother, and pushing back on what he characterized as a misleading headline surrounding that settlement. So where does all of this actually leave the football side of the story? Well, it's worth remembering that Diggs was previously found not guilty in a completely separate legal matter involving a former personal chef. After that resolution, it genuinely looked like he might be cleared to sign wherever he wanted. No restrictions, no lingering question marks. And for a while, the assumption around Washington was that since the front office hadn't moved to sign him despite his clear interest, the team simply wasn't pursuing it, that enough time had passed without a deal that the door had quietly closed. But now, with these new legal details actively unfolding in real time, a different picture starts to emerge. It increasingly looks like teams across the league might simply be waiting on the sidelines to see how this particular legal situation with Griffith resolves before committing actual money and a roster spot to him. Diggs himself seems to be feeling that hesitation. He recently posted a workout video where he looked directly into the camera and asked, essentially, whether people's current wide receiver 2 is really better than him. It's a pointed, almost defensive kind of message, the sort of thing a player says when he feels like he should have offers rolling in and doesn't understand why he doesn't. That kind of general, almost pleading rhetorical question suggests he may not currently have firm offers on the table, or at the very least, that any offers extended so far have come with conditions attached along the lines of "we're interested, but we need clarity on the legal situation first." So here's the honest, grounded read on the whole Diggs situation heading into camp. Yes, players want him here. Yes, he appears to want to be here. Yes, the talent case for signing him is obvious given what he did on the field last season, even in a limited role. But none of that changes the reality that this is fundamentally a legal story before it's a football story right now. Whatever happens in that courtroom is going to determine the timeline and possibly the outcome of any potential deal, regardless of how loud the recruiting efforts get on Instagram. Now, let's shift to a much lighter and honestly much more encouraging storyline: what's happening with Jaden Daniels and this offense out in Los Angeles. The Commanders' offensive core spent time out at UCLA this weekend, getting real work in together outside of the structured team facility environment. McLaurin was there. Some of the receiving core, several offensive skill players, and of course Daniels himself, all putting in reps together voluntarily on their own time in the middle of the offseason. And interestingly enough, Diggs even made an appearance in the background of this story too, dropping a fire emoji under a photo from the session, further fueling speculation about where his head's at regarding his future. But here's the part of this story that actually matters most for the football side of things. This is not the first time Daniels has organized something like this. There's already a documented history of him bringing teammates out to Los Angeles for organized training sessions during the offseason. And what makes this particularly notable is the contrast with where this team was mentally just 1 year ago. Last season, by pretty much every account, felt disjointed from the jump. Constant change, injuries piling up, a prolonged contract holdout casting a shadow over training camp, new pieces being shuffled into the lineup at seemingly every turn. It never really felt like the offense had one unified direction or one unified voice pulling everyone the same way. This year feels fundamentally different, and it's not just about the head coach reportedly approaching off-season work with more intensity and seriousness than at any previous point in his career. It's specifically about Daniels stepping into a new phase of his own leadership. In year one, he wasn't the guy organizing trips, calling teammates together, setting the tone for how the group prepares before the season even starts. He was still finding his footing, still earning trust, still just a rookie feeling his way through the league. Now in year 3, he's the one calling up his skill position guys and essentially saying, "We need to be sharp," because the schedule opens with real tests right out of the gate, and there's no room to be playing catch-up in September. There's a bigger, harder-to-quantify factor at play here too, something that's admittedly difficult to put concrete numbers behind, but that matters in ways that stat sheets simply don't capture. Call it vibes, call it chemistry, call it whatever you want, but there's a very different energy surrounding this team heading into camp compared to a year ago, when there were public reports suggesting the locker room culture and cohesion were noticeably off well before the record ever reflected it. This year, that same undefinable sense seems to be trending in the opposite direction. Players buying in, coaches pushing harder, the front office backing it all up by spending more aggressively than at any previous point in the current regime's tenure. Now, to be clear, nobody's pretending this roster suddenly has the same top-end talent as the true championship contenders around the league. It doesn't. But football has shown time and time again that talent alone doesn't determine outcomes, especially not in a league built around parity and margins as thin as a single fourth-quarter possession. When everyone in a building is genuinely rowing in the same direction, sharing the same vision, buying into the same standard, teams can outperform their raw talent level in ways that are hard to predict on paper, but become obvious once the season actually kicks off. So when you put it all together this week, you've got a franchise legend finally getting his flowers after decades of waiting. You've got a supremely talented but legally entangled free agent receiver very publicly campaigning to join the roster while the courts sort out his future. And you've got a young franchise quarterback quietly, deliberately stepping into a new level of leadership that has genuinely shifted the tone of this entire organization heading into the most important training camp of his career so far. That is a stacked week of storylines by any measure, and training camp hasn't even officially started yet. So here's what I want to hear from you. Do you think the legal situation resolves in time for the Commanders to realistically pursue Stefon Diggs this season, or is this ship already sailed regardless of talent? And after everything you just heard about Jaden Daniels organizing these Los Angeles sessions, are you feeling more confident about this offense heading into the year? Drop your predictions and your honest takes in the comments below. I want to see all of it. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you smash that like button, drop a comment, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to join the channel. We've got a lot more Commanders coverage coming as we get closer to camp, and you will not want to miss any of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.